Okay. Last week I wasn't here, but Sheldon taught. So are there any questions from what Sheldon taught before we move into place? Okay, go ahead.
Did you ever find out what lovers of horses mean, or what the characteristics of horses are?
And then I have that for you in a second.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? I would be interested in that too, because horses is very prevalent in Revelation.
That's what how we got on that. Paul, Philippians 1 and Philippi, those people, the name means the love of horses, and they raise horses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do horses have something to do with grace?
It depends, because it talks about, you remember the horse, death rode the horse?
Yeah.
So it depends on the context. See, this is the thing that the Greek doesn't have, neither does the English. Contextual structure. A word in the Hebrew can mean something totally different depending on the context in which it's used. And the same thing is about the Aramaic. So that is why it's so important to have access to those kinds of resources. And the thing that's so fascinating to me is that the most difficult resource to have access to, seemingly, is the Aramaic. And that's what Jesus primarily taught in the Aramaic. So that language is very difficult to get access to it. The other thing is that it's one of those, the way we access it, and I don't know whether it's true with Sheldon or not, and the other teachers, but one of the ways we access, I do anyway, is that I will look at words that I see in the Aramaic. For example, if I look at love in the Aramaic, and I look at the Greek, and that's word for Greek for love is philos. When I look at another word in the Aramaic, if it's philos, then I know it's ram, the same thing. So you have to almost kind of sort of cross-reference everything in the Aramaic in order to get a meaning out of it. That's what makes it so difficult. And it's very, very difficult to teach people to do that.
Well, isn't it like digging for a treasure?
It's even worse than that.
It's worse?
It's harder than that, just to tell you the truth.
Okay, it's harder.
Because if you are not totally interested in it, you will quit. That's how difficult it is. It's one of those things where one verse can consume you all night. But in the Hebrew, it's more accessible. And the reason I believe it's more accessible is because of the synagogues. You know, the Jews make it accessible to them, and there are rabbis that make it accessible to me. So it's easy to get your hands on material that translates the Hebrew than it is to get your hands on material that translates the Aramaic.
So just a curiosity question, is it that, is it a certain group for text, the Aramaic original meaning or something?
The Aramaic scrolls were the ones that met the most destruction after the 12th, in the 12th century. After that, when they had the Nicene Conference, where the bishop made the determination about Catholicism and what books were going to be used in the Bible, that's when the destruction of the Aramaic scrolls begun. I mean, broadly. So, so that's what makes it difficult. There was, and when what do they call those people? Not the conquistadors from Mexico. What do they call it? When they did when the Catholics had these soldiers go around the world.
Templars?
No, not the other.
Crusaders?
Crusaders. Yeah, the Crusaders were, when the Crusaders came in, they were like Templars. The Crusaders were. When they came in, what they did, they burned all the books. They burned the entire library.
Because they just wanted King James version.
No,
to be-
no, ma'am. King James version was not even in existence.
Oh, okay.
The only books that were acceptable were the ones that the bishops had chosen. King James version did not come into existence until 1611, and that was when King James commissioned a group of clergy to translate it from the Septuagint, from the Greek, into the English version.
But by then, everything had already been kind of manipulated?
Yes. And then not only what had already been kind of sort of manipulated, but it was even manipulated more so when it was translated into the King James Version, because what King James Version did, it actually put gender on the spirit when it was neutral.
Was it,
It put gender on God when it was neutral.
that was their intent to do that?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, because it's a male-dominated world.
Okay.
Another thing it did was true Christianity didn't separate, it connected, so it was all about unity, whereas the religion how it's used today is completely the opposite. And I'm not sure exactly what it's called, but the Catholic Church is designed like the King's Quandrum, and the Protestant Church is designed just like a court, where you have like the deacons, you have those certain little spots.
That's the jury.
The jury, with how the Pope is in the Catholic Church. He always has his back to the wall so that he can see everything, and even when you come in, you have to bow down to him and stuff like that. So all of it is about being
Wow.
submissive, and all of it is about everything to do with law and order.
Okay, let's go back to the term you use. You use unity, okay?
Yes.
That is not the same as oneness, though.
No.
Okay.
What I'm saying is they're teaching two totally different messages when you look at the original Christianity that was taught versus the Christianity that was basically used to subjugate people.
See,
Okay, so Christianity prior to it being
The original
manipulated.
Christianity.
Pre-Constantine Christianity.
Okay, that was about the unity, which is the same as oneness.
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And it wasn't,
And what I mean by that,
there was no separation.
Yeah, it did. That's what I mean. It wasn't a religion that actually taught you to be separate from others. Like,
Oh, God.
Yeah, these are the saved people, and these are the damned people. It didn't do that.
Okay.
There is no sense of eternal damnation in terms of hell the way it's taught.
Right.
There's no sense of that in the Aramaic or the Hebrew. There's no sense of that at all.
No.
Okay.
Because if you think about it clearly, it says that, and he went into the lower parts of the earth, right? And it also talks about when he was resurrected, then the saints were resurrected with him. Sheol talks about the underworld, or the world of the dead. And it does not talk about eternal damnation in the sense that is taught. What Sheldon is talking about when he talks about the way Catholicism and Protestantism are set up is that prior to Constantine and the Pope dominating religion, there was no difference seen between people and God, or nature and God and people. All was one. And it was not a way of life, it was life itself. It was not unheard
For security
of.
purposes, this
It was
call
not
has been
unheard
terminated.
of to be
Please
able
contact your
to
moderator.
change, to transcend time. That was not unheard of. It was not unheard of for determinations to be made about what certain herbs or roots did in terms of healing, for the body. So it was not unheard of for people to be able to map the universe. That was not unheard of. But what happened in post-Constantine Christianity, what happened is that the Pope became the king of the church. And if you look at the way kingdoms are set up, that's exactly how the Catholic Church was set up, with the exception of the Queen. The only queen that the Catholic Church recognized without calling the Queen is Mary. Now, the Catholic, the Pope is the king, and the bishops are the ones who keeps the subjects in line. And the way the bishop keeps the subjects in line is that the bishops keep a tight ring over the priests in their region, their district. And the reason that it was set up that way, in terms of the altars, the pulpit is designed to force you to look up to them. That it has a psychological effect on being submissive. And to come in to the sanctuary, the way you come in is also about submission, because you are coming to the Lord, you're coming to the Pope, you're coming to. You see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So all of this was about submission. Now, and I skipped the College of Cardinals on purpose because they came about later. The College of Cardinals came about when the Pope decided to solidify his control over who the next Pope would be. The Cardinals, the primary purpose for Cardinals is simply to choose a Pope. They do absolutely nothing until it's time to choose a Pope, except the biddings of the current Pope. And the College of Cardinals are chosen by the Pope. So and I think, what is it? It started with 72, wasn't it?
I'm not sure.
I think it did. But anyway,
so that's a recent?
Cardinals are fairly recent in terms of history.
Wow.
Yeah. It wasn't in the beginning with Catholicism. It was something that morphed and you came into being for the solidification of control. Now, the Protestant church did not want a hierarchy in terms of a kingship. So the Protestant church simply broke down the monarch into smaller pieces. The pastor became the king. The deacons became the jury, or the pastor is the judge and the deacons are the jury. In terms of a English court system, that's the kind of structure that post-Constantine Christianity took upon itself. And the only reason that trustees came into being is because of laws that says that our property had to be held in trust on behalf of a group of people or an entity. Mm-hmm. And that's why you have trustees. Mm-hmm. So when you look at the flow chart of the structure of the church, if you look at Methodist Church, it is pretty much structured like the Catholic Church, with the exception of not having a pope, but it does have bishops that control regions, and the Council of Bishops determine what the Methodist Church ended up doing, and it's filtered down from bishops to elders, from elders to individual pastors in the districts. You see what I'm talking about? You got district elders, and that's how it filters down. In the Baptist church, it's just a smaller piece of the same pie. It's just done differently. Instead of having, they call it congregational rule, in that the congregation is supposed to be the ones who vote to have the final say. But this is one thing that most people don't realize. By and large, until I guess around the 1920s or 30s, African American churches didn't know anything about church meetings. They didn't do that because they didn't see the church as a business. They saw the church as an entity of God, and the pastor was that representative, and he was the one who spoke on their behalf. And that is the reason, if you look at it, it's not that much time between the 20s and the 60s, or the late 50s, when King started the SCLC. Mm-hmm. That's why it was so prevalent in the churches, because it was always the African American pastor who spoke for the community, because most of the time he was the most educated in the community, and he had the community interest at heart. And when we look at the way the buildings were structured, as Sheldon was talking about, the back being to the wall, it was so nothing could get behind them. And everything was in front of him. Everything that's in front of him, he controlled. So it's the whole system is designed for control. And regardless of what people may say, we are different than the Catholic Church is, that is not true. You cannot be different than your mama. You came out of that womb. And coming out of that womb, you still have the characteristics. You can look at Imani and tell that Imani is my child, but you also know that Imani is different than me.
Right.
You can distinguish Imani from me. So just because you call yourself Baptist or Methodist, it doesn't mean you don't resemble the womb that you came out of. You can see the different characteristics, but you still see the womb.
It's the same foundation.
Same foundation that it comes out of. Same foundation. So, in order to be able to travel the journey of truth and see what's really in the scriptures, you have to dig that foundation up. That foundation has to be completely destroyed. And it takes tremendous amount of time to destroy that foundation. It's easy to push this building over.
Right.
But dig up the foundation that it sits on. You see the difficulty?
Yeah.
It takes a while to do that. So when I began to first see the enlightenment, it was pushing the building over. But when I began to look at it from the Hebraic and Aramaic perspective, now the task of digging up the foundation has begun. And that is one of the reasons it is so difficult to get people to stick to it. There are people who will not do this because it's hard. And they get tired. It's like if all of us were outside with picks and shovels digging up this foundation, some would continue and some would quit because they're tired. And then there will be those who will come later on and say, I didn't know you all were doing this. I want to help. And we're at the end now. We only have 2 feet of foundation left to dig up, but they help. So they get the same reward as those who started at the beginning.
Right.
But those who quit are not fit for the kingdom because they put their hands to the plow and they turn back. In other words, they recognized what was happening, but they were not committed enough or not interested enough or didn't care enough to continue the journey. They felt more comfortable in staying where they were. So it's like a dog returning to his vomit.
We also had an experience with the King James Bible on last Saturday. Sheldon was reading from Young's version. Am I correct?
Young's literal translation.
Literal translation.
Mm-hmm.
And he was flowing, but when we were looking in the King James Bible, it was a heaviness on me and the guy behind us. And it was confusing.
Well, and see, the other part of it is this. You don't speak the King's English.
It also seemed like he was saying so much.
But I was explaining with the Young's literal translation. You know how when we read Gospel of Thomas and stuff, it has none of that other stuff. It flows. Yeah. So the Young's literal translation, it was doing the exact same thing. And then once you just look at the prominent words from the Young's literal translation and find out exactly what they're saying with those words, it has so much meaning. You saw exactly how Paul basically met the people. He met them exactly where they were as far as their understanding of how everything was. And then he just made these connections, I'm just like you.
Right.
Okay. Then I'm just like Jesus. And then, just connected. Like he just walked them straight
and
through
see,
it.
that's why everybody can't teach. Because you have to take people where they are. You got to understand the King James Version. Because that's where most people are. And you have to help them to flow into Young's Literal Translation. You have to help them flow into being able to teach without having to take a text. you have to help them to flow. And we were discussing a moment ago about making a help me and how different that really should have been translated. You have to help people do that, and it's very difficult to do that. It is much easier simply to take what's on the page and convince yourself that that's all it is.
Yeah, and that's hard.
Yeah. So what happened, the reason you were heavy is because you are beginning to become what the light intends for you to become. And the heaviness is a burden because there was in the first psalm it talks about, and you meditate on the word day and night. Night talks about twisting the light away. So the king, when you think about what King James is saying in relationship to what Shelley was teaching from Young's literal translation, it's like trying to twist the light away from you. So the heaviness is a pull, it's a tug of war that's taking place. I did a funeral on Thursday, and I looked at the 27th Psalm, the first verse and the last verse. And in the last verse, which is the 14th verse, it says, wait on the Lord, be ye not discouraged, wait, I say, on the Lord. Mm-hmm. Well, that's not what it says. And when I taught it, some mouth fell open. Because what it actually says is, be enjoined to Jehovah. Be one with Jehovah.
Oh my gosh.
That's what it says. That's the literal translation of it. It actually says, be encouraged, you are one with Jehovah.
Wow.
That's what it actually says.
Mm.
Now, but not knowing where I was going with it, I had to explain that Lord and God are two different words in the Old Testament. Jehovah or Yahweh is Lord. And then when I got to the end of it and explained that it's talking about be conjoined to or realize you're one with. You see the difference?
Yes, yeah.
So this is what I want you to understand, if you understand nothing else. The feeling that went over you when I said that was a feeling of lightness. You could feel the presence of who you are.
Yeah.
It's not feeling the presence of God in that, like God is coming. It wasn't already there. You become aware of the presence that's there. That's what you experienced just now. Mm. The presence that's already there. So how did you experience that? The way you experienced that is because by virtue of my saying it pulled back a layer of darkness, a layer of confusion. Gotcha. So you were able to experience that. Because it's like gradually taking blindness off your eyes. If you've had your eyes checked before, and you know how they take the little things and put them there, and they get clearer and clearer, that's what's happening right now. The clarity is coming, but it's not coming to these, it's coming to this eye. And I had a vision the other night, and what I saw was a painting. And the painting had this light coming from it. And it was coming from here. And the light beginning from here was yellow. But then the further away from this point it got, the whiter it got. So it was like the difference between this yellow light and daylight bulbs. So it was the further away it got from this, the clearer it became. And what I realized is that I was being told that the pineal gland is awakening. It's awakening. It's woke up now. This one, I know that this one is awakened. And it was like that painting all of a sudden became me. I saw the body, but the body wasn't the person. So we are at a place where the shroud is being removed from the Messiah. We're at a place where Messianic consciousness is so prevalent, and there's such a confidence in it until we don't have to concern ourselves with rushing to get through anything in order to keep up with what's going on. we can take our time and neatly fold the grave clothes, neatly fold the shroud, and lay it at the place where authority used to be, where the head was, where authority once was. You can lay it there. Why? Because they're grave clothes and you no longer need them because you're no longer dead. So you put them with the authority that's dead.
And I think the key to all that, what you just said, is what you just described is we know that you have to experience it. Versus like, for example, throughout the Old Testament, when it speaks of God, it's the name that cannot be spoken because there are no words that can encapsulate what God is. So it only can come through experience and experience alone. And what was happening was all of a sudden, well, with religion and how not the pre-Constantine, but post-Constantine Christianity is done is, let's say if looking out that window that is God. But what it did is it put a picture up there and said, this is God. So it told you what God is instead of you actually experiencing it. So now we're understanding that you only can know a thing from experiencing it. So for example, whenever someone explains something to you, the only way you can know exactly what they're talking about, because they're not going to describe it perfectly, they're going to use details about that so that you can recall an instant where you had a similar experience so that you can relate to them, if that makes any sense. Okay. So the only way you can know anything is by experiencing it. You cannot know something by just reading it if you have no concept of it. You have to be it in order to know it.
It's like telling you what to think.
Yeah. Exactly.
In order to guide people in the direction you want them to go in, post-Constantine Christianity had to develop visual aids to manipulate the mind. And the visual aids that were developed was the collar, the robe, and all of that is equated to deity.
The robe is the same robe that's used in the court of law too.
Yeah. Yeah. All of it is deity. Yeah. Then the symbol of the cross, all of this is deity. And to bring the idea of religious superiority to your mind, the deity that was resurrected had to be in the image and likeness of the superior mind when it comes to divinity. That's why Michelangelo painted Jesus as a European. That it had to be done. In order to have all focus geared to it, we know what we are talking about, as opposed to, but I see what's in this. What you're seeing is not clear. You don't see as we see. You see where I'm coming from? Mm-hmm. So it's beyond racism. Racism is just a distraction. It's a distraction that keeps men from seeing clearly who we really are. And to keep men from understanding that we are still asleep. We are still in that trance. And if you recognize that you are in a trance, then you begin to filter everything that you hear while you're in that trance. I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about in a moment. One of the reasons, and I just became aware of this, one of the reasons that I have for so long pushed you not to accept something simply because I say it. Question it. Research it on your own. Then come back with more questions. The reason is because if you accept it simply because I say it, then your trance become deeper. Because you're not thinking. You're not processing. You see me as being divine. but you don't see yourself as being divine. You see me as being divine because I seemingly have all the answers. And you don't question me because you're taught not to question divinity. That's the whole concept.
Mm-hmm.
Even when you look at the English court, you don't question the judge. The judge questions you.
Right.
The final determination in the court comes from the jury, the deacon. Whatever they say, that's what the people usually go along with.
Yeah.
Same principle.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I mean by if you accept what I say simply because I said it, it puts you into a deeper trance. If you look at what happened, it says that as the sun began to go down, a deep sleep fell over him, talking about Abraham.
Okay.
As the light began to diminish itself, he went into a trance. Now, the light that diminished itself, it did not use the word or light. It used the word sun. Why? Because the sun is artificial light.
Right.
The sun is the light that came out of the creation. So when the artificial light began to diminish itself, Abraham goes into a trance because he does not have any light to keep him in the state that he calls awake. So when he goes into this trance, with the light having diminished itself, a darkness of terror comes over him. He's frightened because he's in a place where he's never been before. And what happens next is, it says, and the Lord speaks. You see? Well, and I'm sorry, it doesn't say, it says, and God said to Abraham. Now, this is the key to it. It doesn't say, and God said to Abraham. It says, and Abram said to Abram. And if you look in 12 and 21 of Genesis, God, Elohim, is in italics. And whenever it is italicized, it is added, as the theologians say, for clarity. So the question is, with him being in that trance, what is, 15 and 12.
15, okay.
Put him in, what is it that put him in that trance? Why is he there? Well, it says, and he spoke. So how did he speak to himself?
We do it all the time. Don't we?
We do, but it's in a different sense than what we understand it.
Okay.
You know, we talk about higher self and lower self.
Right.
We talk about Elohim and the natural man, the mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is no different than, let's say that Adam, the natural, is a mechanic.
Okay.
Elohim is a carpenter. So, the Adam was created to be a carpenter. But he is a mechanic, but he feels like he wants to be a carpenter. In order for him to be a carpenter, he has to learn the skills. Does he not?
Mm-hmm.
He has to learn how to frame a house, do all the stuff that a carpenter does. He does not learn that overnight. It takes time for him to learn it, and he keeps vacillating between being a mechanic and a carpenter because it's easier for him to be a mechanic because that's what he's most familiar with.
Okay.
When he begins to see the value in being a carpenter, that's the thing that he was created to be, he begins to lean more towards that. And every once in a while, he starts thinking about framing squares, circular saws, tables, the tools of a carpenter, as opposed to wrenches, and the tools of a mechanic. And when he gets to a point where he fully accepts that he was designed to be a carpenter, it doesn't mean that he has forgotten the principles of a mechanic. It means that he leans more towards being a carpenter. So when he goes into this trance, what happens is the carpenter speaks to the mechanic. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's the same thing as the Elohim speaking to the natural Abraham, the Adam,
Gotcha.
and began to tell him what is to come. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So it is in that sense that we talk to ourselves, and that is the key to keeping people submissive. If I can keep you believing that you are the totality of Adam and there is no Elohim until after you leave this earth, or Elohim exists outside of you, I can keep you submissive to me. But if I tell you that you were created in the image of Elohim and that's who you are regardless of who you think you are, the reality of who you are is Elohim. If I can get you to thinking that way, then I don't control you. You're not submissive to me.
Right.
You become submissive to the Father. And you become one with me. Or you realize that we are the same.
Mm-hmm.
No different than once you are convinced that you're a carpenter and not a mechanic, you stop fixing cars and start building houses.
Right.
You see where I'm coming from? But it doesn't mean that you don't know how to fix a car. So when you come across Vermeil, and Vermeil is still a mechanic, you take Vermeil where she is, and you start talking to her about the tools of a mechanic, but you have greater tools than that. And those greater tools than just being a mechanic are the tools of carpentry. You don't have to die as a mechanic.
Right.
You can live as a carpenter. It doesn't mean that the tools of the mechanic damned you. It means that the tools of the mechanic, if they're used properly, will guide you to new tools.
Okay.
You see?
Yes.
And some of the tools are interchangeable. For example, if you pour a concrete slab and put walls on it, you set bolts. And you use a ratchet to tighten the nuts on the bolts so the wall will stand. And you anchor it to the concrete slab. You use the same ratchet to unloosen bolts or tighten them on a car. You see? So
Yes.
some of the tools are interchangeable.
Right.
But what they actually do, they actually morph, you actually move deeper into being a carpenter and not forgetting the mechanic tools, so that when you run into a Vermeil, you can understand where she's coming from and help her see more clearly where she needs to be going. And that's the Elohim in human, or the Adam.
Okay.
That's what we're talking about when we're talking about higher and lower self.
Okay.
And the more that you do that, the more capable you are of constructing houses, buildings. I would not live in buildings made with hands. I would live in the hearts of men, the thoughts. You see?
Yeah.
So what happens is the feminine, the Eve, the mother of all living, becomes the house that surrounds the masculine. And when you look at, as Sheldon and I were doing, I think before we started broadcasting, we're sharing the idea of making a helpmeet is talking about making a surrounding for the Adam. And it just dawned on me what it actually means. The Adam is surrounded by feminine energy. because the womb surrounds the seed.
Yeah.
And then it's through the nurturing in the womb that the seed grows into what it was supposed to be. So when the seed of the carpenter is realized in you, then you allow the womb of the feminine energy, the womb of the forces of life to nurture that seed until it grows into fruition. So what am I saying to you? I may be the nurturing source for the seed of the carpenter that's in you, but I might not be the total source of nurturing. It may also come from someone else.
Right.
A Sheldon, a Barbara, a Ron, a Kathy, a Linda. You see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
It may come from someone else. But nonetheless, the nurturing does indeed take place. And and what has happened is the seed has not only become the dominant one, but the seed has also become homosexual, because the seed has surrounded itself with the seed and it nurtures itself with the seed. Men run religion. Men determine what religious folk believe. Men nurture the seed of religion. They don't take in, women can't teach men. You see where I'm coming from? Women are not, their ideas, their thoughts, their wisdom is not acceptable. And it may seem a stretch, but when you deal with spiritual things, it is very difficult for unspiritual people to see it. It makes sense to them, but it's hard for them to grasp because it looks so minor. But this is major. The suppression of the feminine is a manifestation of what's happening in the spiritual. And the idea of homosexuality manifested in the physical is an expression of what's happening in the spiritual. In the spiritual, the seed is surrounding itself and nurturing itself and it convincing itself that it has a womb that can bring forth the reality of what we were created to be, when in essence it doesn't. So what happens is that this whole idea of selfishness and the whole idea of homosexuality comes into a manifestation as a result of what's happening in the spiritual. So it is manifested not just in the masculine, but also in the feminine, because the feminine can only nurture the seed that's put in its presence. Can you see? You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it's not that homosexuality is good or bad, evil or divine. It simply is. That's how things are, and it doesn't mean that it should be damned, destroyed, or sent to hell. It means it must be understood so a change can take place in the spiritual, and all of us can take our rightful places in the realm of the spirit and manifest it in this earth as masculine and feminine with mutual respect and understanding for each other, so that the wisdom of the energy force, which is femininity, can be brought to a place of understanding. And it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. There are points in time when you become masculine or feminine, but you have to respect the different energy forces. If you don't, then you run the risk of being a demagogue by suppressing the feminine, or you run the risk of ignoring it and ended up creating the idea of the energy of homosexuality. Am I making sense? Look in Romans, it says that the reason it happened is because they traded the truth for a lie. Mm-hmm. That's what it says. Right. It does not talk about what people call the demonic, all that crazy stuff that's out there. It's not talking about that. The lie that was traded is that men are in charge of everything and we can nurture everything. We know everything. We have the wisdom. We run the show. Sit down, shut up, get pregnant, have babies, and take care of them. That's crazy. That is not how it is supposed to be. It's not how it's supposed to be. when the man said that, and her name shall be called Eve, because she is the mother of the living, or all that live. If you look at the word living, or it's the same word for life in the tree of life. So what he's saying is that she is the nurturer of all the thoughts that pertains to the tree of life. But what we have done, we have created in ourselves as masculine energy, a femininity that masquerades as the mother of all living. We are the ones who mold thought. We are the ones who create thoughts. We are the ones who tell you what to think. And when I say we, I don't mean it in a natural sense. I'm talking about it being manifested from the spiritual in a natural sense. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So with that being manifested in a natural sense, that is where the chaos comes from. That is where the darkness comes from. That is where the energy of selfishness, misunderstanding, racism, bigotry, economic suppression, social engineering, that's where all of this stuff comes from. Every bit of it, wars, all of it comes from that. But when we make a conscious decision to uproot the foundation of ignorance and put in its place the foundation of wisdom and understanding, then we began to build a house of knowledge, a house of experience. And the house of experience, the house of knowledge, is no more than Elohim recognizing that Elohim is Elohim. So that you don't have to die like the Prince of Men, but you can, Adam, but you can live as you were created to live, Elohim.
That's the only thing Jesus was doing, is trying to open people up to having that experience. In John 10 and 30, they basically called, well, they didn't basically, they called him a heretic. And the only thing he did was reference the Old Testament, went back to Psalms 82. Why? My pastors never taught me that.
I think for broadcasting's sake, you had said previously in your message while you were speaking about women. There's somewhere in there where you were saying, and we knew what you were talking about, but I don't know if the people that chime in know what you're talking about.
Help me find
It was about, you were saying women being suppressed or not recognized.
Yeah.
But you were saying as if, I caught it as it was, no, I didn't catch it that way. I just don't want them to get.
Tell me how you think they caught it.
Oh, as you were saying that women, it's right that women are being suppressed, or that's the thing to do.
I'm saying that is wrong, right.
I want
to clear it up.
Them.
Okay,
yeah.
What I'm saying is that the suppression of women results in total chaos for everyone because it's wrong.
Okay.
Women and men are representative of spiritual energy, the force of life. You cannot have one dominate the other. They simply play different roles, but both roles are equal and balanced. And what I mean by that is this: balance does not, and equal does not mean that they weigh the same thing. What it means is that they do what they need to do when they need to do it. And there is total mutual respect. If you don't realize as a female where you are and where you can be, it is not for me to manipulate you based upon that. It is for me to help you see where you are and see where you need to be. At that point, I am a seed. But when you say to me, I don't understand, you are the seed and I become the womb to nurture that seed so that birth from that seed can be knowledge. You see what I'm talking about? Yeah. So the roles are constantly not being switched, but are constantly being played by both entities. And the separation between you and Mark is not the chair. There is no separation. Right. The separation is only in the mind. And until we come to the place where we understand that there are things that must happen that we would see as being totally distasteful. There are things that must happen in order to bring a perspective of this energy into our faces so we can see it. Until we accept that we will always be blind to it. And what I'm saying is this. Don't think that you're going to see everything that needs to take place in order to bring this into fruition. Don't think that you're going to be presented with everything that must take place to bring this into fruition. Because there are things that are playing out behind the scenes that you'll never see. And if you were to see it, you will have a total misconception of what's going on. So those things have a spiritual blanket over them, so that you are not led in the wrong direction based upon your earlier misconceptions of what Scripture is supposed to be about. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is that clearer? Because
Yes.
I don't want anyone to think for a moment that I'm saying I'm talking about the suppression of females in that they should be a suppression. That's exactly not what I'm talking about. I mean, it's totally antithetic to what I'm talking about. Okay.
Again,
I know.
we knew what you were
Yeah.
saying, but for
I do understand. And what we said in the past is that if we speak quickly, stop me, so that we can make sure, because you don't ever know whether someone is listening for the first time or not.
right.
And there are terms that I use, that we readily understand. But I don't want to take for granted that everyone understands them.
Well, you were on a roll, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Right, okay.
And you know, now I see why Barbara has a tablet, because she's constantly writing, and that's what I'm gonna have to do, because I really wanted to stop, but I said no. But I have another question. I have a question. Scripture says that, well, I say that ye are gods.
Yes.
My question is, well, why do we pray to God in the way that we've been taught to pray?
Because if I can convince you that you are praying to Elohim, that means that you are not Elohim. But if I teach you that you are Elohim and that you are one with the Father, as John 10 and 30 says, that you're one with the Father, you're one with Yahweh, you're one with Jehovah. And if I can teach you that, then you will begin to understand. In order for you to vibrate, in order for you to be in rhythm with Jehovah, you have to come to an awareness that you're Elohim. Because Elohim vibrates or is in rhythm with Jehovah. So the rhythmic function of prayer is not saying words.
Right.
The rhythmic function of prayer is understanding the words that you're saying.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does, because normally when we pray, it's because we want things dealt with. We want things to end. Change. Yeah, to change.
Yes.
And then I thought about it. I said, so if he said, for I say that ye are gods, why is it necessary to pray the way that I've been taught to pray? And the things,
Think about it this way, baby girl. Listen to this. And the disciple says to Yeshua, to Jesus, teach us to pray, as John taught his disciples. And he said, when you pray, you say, our Yahweh, our Father, our Abum, our Father. He did not say Elohim. Think about it. He said Abum, our Father. So when we teach we're praying to God, we're not teaching to pray the way he said.
Right.
And it's not the words that we repeat, it's understanding what the words mean. When you say our Father, which is all enlightenment, it is our Abum, the boom of all, the Father of everything that is, the source of everything, which is all enlightenment.
It's almost like saying, as you go in to start, I am the power, because the whole concept of you and the Father being one is already known. So that's what he's talking about, what's actually known. Now, if you preach that same exact thing, or tell someone to say that same exact thing, but they have no concept of knowing that they and the Father are one, it totally changes it. All of a sudden now, you are just somebody who is petitioning for something to actually take place, versus you actually having the right and you actively making that thing, or you doing that thing yourself. It goes from a request to you doing it.
It's like right now, if you say, "Our Father which art in heaven,"
Mm-hmm.
if you say that, your understanding of it is what makes things different than someone who says it and don't have that understanding. Because their expectation is not what yours is.
Right.
Is it also what you're saying in the sense that if you're doing the doing, there is no separation?
Right.
You understand that, whereas if you're making the request, you're enforcing that separation as if I'm not enabled or connected to you to do that.
The one request is make me more aware that we are one. Beyond that, the one request. See, when you say, "Our Father, our womb, which art in heaven," which is all the source of enlightenment, right? Then you say, "Holy is your name. Separated is your light. Your light is separate than any light that I've ever thought I saw. You're different than, you are recognizing the source of everything that is." And when you begin to do that, that's when you come in rhythm with. Being in rhythm with means to be one with. It is no different than singing a cappella with voices harmonizing. Each one of the voices are different, but they sound like one.
Yeah.
So that's what the rhythm of prayer, or the vibration of prayer is supposed to be about.
And not only that, it makes the way we've been taught, it makes everything else know the Lord that we come to the Father with, or what you just said.
Yeah.
You know, this stuff is not even necessary. It's not, yeah.
Yesterday when we were leaving the funeral, I said to Phoebe, the most difficult thing for me to do when people ask me to do it at church
Prayer.
is pray.
Mm.
It's very difficult because I can't do it the way their expectations
I'm telling you.
are. I can't say the things that I used to say because they make absolutely no sense. So I end up, usually now, they ask me to pray in a minute and a half to 3 minutes, I'm done. And they wait for me to get to the end, but I'm through. But I can't do that. I will share this with you. Yesterday, I got a phone call. Well, on Thursday, I did a funeral in Union. And yesterday, I got a phone call from someone in Union when I was on my way from the funeral. And they left a message for me to call them back. I called them. And the person says to me, in a complimentary way, I heard that Jesus was in town yesterday. I said, I beg your pardon?
You're not even being pumped.
He did not say it.
So, I said, I beg your pardon, and I'm not going to call the guy's name. She says, so-and-so called me and told me that Jesus was in town. And when I asked him what was he talking about, he said that Reverend Richard did this funeral, and when he finished teaching, the preachers and everybody's mouth was hanging open, and that's when he met Jesus at Minatown. Mm-hmm. And I thought about that for a moment after I got another phone, because it tickled me, okay? Because when you're doing something, you do what you know. Yeah. And all I know is to teach. But anyway, I thought about that. Yeah. And this is what came to me. Though he was saying it complimentary, but jokingly, he was absolutely right. Because Yahweh who delivers was speaking. And the message was one of deliverance, not one of submissiveness to the powers that be. So we have to see ourselves from that perspective, not just me. Mm-hmm. We have to, and how do we do that? Stop complaining about stuff. Mm-hmm. Stop being afraid that something is too good to be true. Stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. And when you come across people who are waiting for something bad to happen, talk to them. Tell them, you know what, because of who you are, all things work together for your good, regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter how it looks. What matters is what it really is.
And this has to be understood as far as realization is concerned. With all things being neutral, you see what you expect and what you want to see. So in any situation, if someone goes around and thinking, okay, today is going to be a bad day or whatever, they already have programmed themselves to only see the bad things that take place. And because they only see the bad things that take place, they don't realize and see nothing good that actually takes place. So even in a situation, they can't see the good in it because they're just programmed. It's the same thing when we talk about being conscious. If anyone in here has ever talked to someone and maybe you broke up with that person or is a new person in your life or something like that, and all of a sudden you see cars like theirs all across town. It's not that all of a sudden there's an increased number of those vehicles just riding around on the street.
It's what you focused on.
It's just what you're focused on. So what, as far as someone having a good day or seeing the good and everything or seeing the bad and everything, it's because they have, whether they know it or not, they have made a conscious decision to actually see that. You see what you want to see as far as seeing things outside of yourself.
And hear what you want to hear too.
This is it. You bring about an awareness of darkness.
Wow.
When you say be conscious of it, you bring about an awareness of darkness. And whatever you want to become aware of, that's what you become aware of.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter. You've heard the term, if you look for something wrong, you'll find it.
That's power.
But that's who we are.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. When Paul writes, talking about edify one another, that word edify is the Greek word for energy, which is the same word for life force. So you are supposed to energize each other. Life force. You don't energize me by helping me walk through a pity party. You don't energize me by helping me see the darkness in life. You energize me by helping me see the light in everything. Why? Why do I see the light in everything? Because I am the light. So I have to see me in everything.
Mm.
Everything. I inject myself into circumstances and situations. Because people need that. They have to have that. And if we don't do that, then we're not teaching the mechanic that you're really a carpenter. What we actually become is the eagle in the chicken pen. That's what we become. And you will remain an eagle in that pen with those chickens, pecking on the ground, picking through your own excrement on the ground, until one day somebody teaches you that you're not a chicken, you're an eagle. Somebody shows you a mirror and you see yourself in that mirror and you look at that chicken and you say, I don't look like that. Something got to be different. And they tell you, if you don't believe that you're an eagle, spread your wings. And when you spread your wings and the chicken spread his wings, he get about 4 feet off the ground, but you fly above the chicken coop. And you land right back in that pen again because you're not comfortable with who you are. You're more comfortable with being that chicken pecking on the ground because that's what you've been raised to be. But one day you get to the point where you say, it doesn't matter what happened. If my wings get tired and I fall from the sky and die, I'm going to do it anyway. And you take off and you fly above that chicken coop and you fly around the land and you realize something. The wind beneath your wings is what keeps your wings from getting tired. It is the breath of the Creator who keeps you moving. So regardless of how dangerous it may appear to be, you know that it's the breath beneath your wings that keeps you aloft. And when the storm comes, you don't run from the storm. The eagle flies directly into the eye of the storm. And it is the storm that keeps him above the storm. The storm rages beneath him, but he stays above it the whole time. Why? Because he came to the realization he's not a chicken, he's an eagle. And when you realize that you are not a mere man, you're not an Adam, you're Elohim, then the wind beneath your wings, the breath that you are, will keep you aloft and will keep you above the storms. The storms will rage. They will rage. And rather than running from them, walk directly into them and allow the power of the storm to keep you above it. And I promise you, your life will be different. It's not easy to do that. It does not happen overnight. But I promise you, if that is your desire, that's what will happen. Because your desire is to become aware that you are an eagle. You must realize that. You cannot, and if you're reared among eagles, you can't stay in the nest. You get pushed out. At some point, you got to learn to fly on your own. And what I mean by on your own is not that you don't have the support of the community, because the community of eagles, because eagles mate for life. It's not that you don't have that support. It's that you have to be able to rise above the storms on your own. You have to be able to realize, you have to realize and be aware that you are above all of these natural circumstances that bring fear and damnation to those who don't realize who they really are. And you can see further than anything. Your vantage point does not necessarily give that to you. The vision of an eagle is capable of seeing a 1-inch ladder a mile away. The vision of an eagle is extraordinary. So you are able to see beyond the circumstances. You are able to see further than anything around you. Regardless of what goes on, you're the king of the air. In other words, above everything else, you realize that it is the breath that was blown into your countenance that keeps you alive. That breath is what makes you who you are. And separated from that breath, you are a dead soul. But with that breath, you are a living soul. A dead soul is an eagle who thinks he's a chicken. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And when you begin to act like who you are, you're going to get accusations of arrogance and all that other. It does not matter. Just be who you are, but never, ever be destructive to the chicken. Remember, you thought you were a chicken one time.
Yeah.
Never look down on the chicken like the chicken is less than you. Don't forget, you thought you were a chicken. Don't look down on the mechanic. Don't forget, you were once that mechanic who realized you were created to be a carpenter. Am I making sense to you?
Yes.
It is imperative that we operate. When I say operate, I simply mean that we began to function in the capacity that we were created to function in. At our house, when they built our house, they put the power boxes in the house are like 250 amps or 200 amps. They put 600 amps on the ground. That's what they were doing then. There's 600 amps of power that runs to our house. We only use 200. We got a 200 amp box in the house. I got a 200 amp box outside the house. What am I trying to say to you? That 600 amps runs on the ground. But if I allow all that power to come into the house at once, it go blow the house up. It go destroy everything in there. You see what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. So that power has to be stepped down. Even when that 200 comes into that box, it's broken down into 20 amp breakers. It's stepped down. So it's constantly stepped down and distributed in the way that it needs to be distributed. When I turn the light on in my den, the power that goes out there is less than 20 amps. But what goes out there is what's needed. So I'm saying to you, even though you may be 600 amps, there's sometimes when you come in contact with people, you got to step it down. You got to step it down. You cannot hit them full force because you will destroy them. You have to deal with it based upon where they are. This is no different than what Sheldon taught last week. I'm told that when you talked about Paul took people where they were, and he became as they were. When Paul says that when the Romans do, I became a Roman, he's not talking about culturally. He's talking about spiritually. I became what they were at the time that I needed to be that for them. For them. And when people see you and are comfortable with your spirit, because they're comfortable with who they are, when you become as they are and they're comfortable with you, now you can take them by their hand and lead them to a place beyond where you found them. But if you go in there with an unfamiliar spirit and you don't know how to be familiar, bring them to a place of familiarity with you, you may go, but they won't go with you. And you can definitely damage them.
And the only thing you're doing, what you're describing, is you're just connecting with them.
That's all.
And when you connect with people, everybody is familiar with connection. They may not understand the importance of how big it is, but everyone understands connection. That your entire life, and everyone does it, they connect with people. That's just simple.
That's it. Any questions about this?
You know, I'm thinking,
Thank you.
and where I work, we don't have a deputy director, which is over the human resource department. We don't have a human resource director. Everybody is coming to me. And I'm like, what's going on here?
You remember when I said to you, don't question anything.
Yeah, you say that to me a lot.
Yeah. Just let it go, let it be what it is. It's like, I'm going to give you an explanation of something.
Okay.
I want to give it to everybody in the room. Understand this. It's like when you see people
Mm-hmm.
and you say that there's something about that person I can't put my finger on.
Mm-hmm.
What you actually, the Elohim is seeing light. But you don't realize what it is. People see you as a source of understanding. They see light, but they don't recognize what it is because they haven't been taught. That is why I guarantee you, at some point in your life, most of you in this room, if not all of you, have had people, whether it be at school, at work, at home, in your family, someplace, where you ask yourself this question: why do people always bring their problems to me? The reason they do that is because they see light. But they see it with the pineal gland. They don't see it with these eyes. That's why they're drawn to you.
That's when I was compelled to tell you this, and I don't know why. I don't know why I'm saying this type deal. That's when that takes place. And we've done it with others as well. Whenever you're compelled to do something you don't know why, you just have an intuitive feeling to do so, that is your third eye working.
And I'm telling you, on the heels of what Sheldon just said, there has been more rejection of the third eye being awakened in this room, not just here, I'm talking about even people who are not here. There have been, let me put it this way, there has been more rejection of the third eye by people that I cover than has ever been in your life. Simply because you don't understand it. Simply because you don't recognize it when you feel it, when you sense it, when you see it. It is now time to help you see when it's operating. So when it's functioning, I should say, because operations, I don't like that. They're like operating different spirits. You know, I don't. It's when your eye is opening, people are drawn to you like a moth is to a candle. And you cannot get to the place where you say, I'm so tired of these folks. Because when you say that, you are actually saying you are tired of becoming aware of who you are. You no longer want to come out of this trance that we went into from the beginning. That's what you're actually saying. And again, coming out of that trance is about intimacy. And intimacy is not just you being in the bedroom with somebody. Intimacy is also about that person who's standing in line with you. I was at Walmart a couple of weeks ago, and I walked up to the counter to check out. I don't use those other things, those scanners. I don't use them because that put people out of job. I walked up to the counter, and this lady was standing there, and she was fumbling with something, trying to get a coupon out of something. It was taking a lot of time. And she told the lady, well, go ahead with him. And she said, sir, I said, no, take your time. And she said, no, you go ahead. She said, I don't want to take your time. I said, ma'am, I'm never in too big of a hurry to be nice. And she looked at me and she said, sir, I really thank you for that. And she teared up. She says that it is so rarely that I come across people who are nice to me. I didn't do that because I wanted to make a name or make her. I did it because that's what I felt. But I did not understand the veracity of what I was doing.
Magnitude.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was, to her, that was like $1 million. And you remember me telling you about the story at the Subway thing that during the Christmas, when they bought those food, their food, and they said that the kids don't visit them, and the old lady sat there and cried. It was two older people there. They were Caucasian. They were in front of me, and we were just talking in line. And I said to the lady, "Don't take care of mine. I'll take care of them." And the lady behind me, I looked back and I did the same for her. Now she said, "Thank you," like thank you. I'm glad, like I got over. But the two in front of me, after I bought them, the lady gave me some coupons for lunch, and I walked over and handed them the coupons and said to them, "You could take these for lunch because I probably won't even use them." And the lady says to me that we came here to have our Christmas dinner because our children don't visit us, and we don't have anybody now who visits us. Most of our friends are dead. And she sat there and cried. Wow. And I understood, she old, most different, so they didn't have anybody. So you don't know what you're doing for people when you be kind. It's just easy to be nasty and vicious and vengeful. It's easy to do that because that's what we're accustomed to. But when you be nice to people, guess what? You will find that it's easier to be nice and less taxing on your body when you're nice. And your life feels so wonderful. Even when things seemingly are not going the way you want them to go, it doesn't matter. Because you have enough positive energy, enough light to tide you over to the next time. So don't pass up an opportunity to be kind and realize when people come to you, they are a moth and you are a candle. So don't put the light out and hide it from them. Don't put your light under a bushel. Be like a city on the hill. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying to you? This is real.
Yes.
This is real. And the more we look into the Adam, the more we look into the Adama, which is the earth, the more we look into the Elohim, the more we begin to awaken that third eye. The more we begin to see. The reason we plod along seemingly as slowly as we do is because there is no point in trying to see the end of the road. You go as far as you see, and then you will see more. But if you try to see the end of the road, then you overlook all the things that you need before you get there. That's the danger in taking a text and trying to preach a different message every Sunday. That's the danger. I used to pride myself on never preaching the same sermon. And the whole time I preached, I never preached the same sermon. And as a result, I got a file cabinet full of sermons. It was going to buy something. Anyway. The danger in that is you don't give enough clarity with that one text. Because first of all, you probably don't understand it even though you're doing it. But more importantly, the people don't have opportunity to ask you questions about portions of it that they didn't get. But next Sunday you go into something else. Because God forbid, you can sing the same song every Sunday, but you can't deal with the same text every Sunday, which is really, really weird to me. So if it appears that I in particular, is being very methodical in the way I'm dealing with this whole Adam situation, is because we need to see this. We cannot move simply because we've been here too long, whatever that means. I think we've been in this trance too long. That's what I think. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've told you about this before, and I've actually talked to Sean about this too. You know, I have a client that's a Jehovah's Witness, and I am just having the hardest time dealing with her. Yesterday, she commented on me being so fashionable and how God wants us to be natural. And I try my darndest not to be nasty to her because she's 97 years old, but she is about to get on my last nerve.
Okay. I do understand. But I understand something else. There is no way that you're going to handle this by yourself. I'm going to go around the barn to go at the door. I'm standing at the door. I'm going to go all the way around the house, come back to the door.
Okay.
There are people who have dealt with similar situations, sometimes with other people, sometimes in themselves. And what I have done is asked other people to focus light, positive energy in their direction in order to change their attitudes or to change the direction that they're headed in. And it worked. Not worked, it happened more times than one. So what I'm saying is that it's probably going to take more of a focus from us to help you get settled with that to the point where it doesn't bother you. Because as long as it is an issue with you, it's going to happen.
I think the biggest issue is I go in there, the first time she did it, I was pissed when I left because I wanted to smack her. I mean, I'm not going to lie. She just got on my nerves so bad. But since then, I've gone up with a positive attitude, and I want to tell her so bad, or ask her, do you think you've been Christ-like when you judge me? Because that's what she's done. When you look at me and tell me that God don't like you to be that fashionable, and I looked at her and said, really? I wear makeup every day of the week, even on the weekend. I mean, I'm sorry, that's natural to me. And she asked me if I believe in heaven. And I was like, oh, Lord. And I said, yeah, I believe in heaven right here on earth. That I can be right.
And see, and you should have stopped at, yes, I believe in heaven.
It don't stop. Then she started quoting scriptures about Paul and what Paul did. And I changed the subject. I offer her chaplain services.
I see what's happening. I see what's happening.
Do everything in my power. She criticized me for not reading the Bible.
She's not judging you.
Yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
I get the sensation she sees in you what she really is, what she wants to be.
Yeah.
Because she's in this box of jumping
That's
into
it.
this, she's afraid to step out there. She's trying to figure out where is your source of confidence coming from.
She's not
That's
judging
what
you at
you're
all.
looking.
She sees you are her mirror.
Yeah.
You are what
She hadn't always been a Jehovah's Witness. I found out that she used to be Methodist. And I don't
She's
know how she became a
Yeah.
Jehovah.
You that's right. You represent freedom, salvation.
Yeah.
But I'm not the only person she did it with. The other social worker cried. She's not about to make me cry.
It doesn't matter. What she sees in people who have the confidence to be who they are, different, and who they are differently than who she sees herself to be. This woman is looking for comfort. She's looking for,
That light that won't go out that your dad just talked about.
she looking for a voice.
And you're confident. You're very confident in who you are, girl.
Sometimes.
Well, what
No.
But see, she doesn't see that sometimes.
That's
All
right.
she sees, that's what you are. You're her light. She's that gray, dull
In bondage. Really.
Martha. She wants that light, and she sees that in
See,
you.
even when you are not confident, nobody knows it but you. When you walk in a room, you walk in like I own the room.
Like Nene Leak said.
And if you don't,
Like I own it. I'm sure
Yeah.
she's ready to
Yeah.
tell, but she.
Yeah.
Hey.
go ahead, bud.
But no, what I was about to say on the tip that she's saying, with it not even religion is how it's being taught at you, but even if it's in the same situation, it's not religion.
It's not.
What you're saying, okay, she sees the confidence in
Yeah.
her. If it's someone is not coming from where they're doing their religion or their faith, but it's just totally
Being
everything, just being ignorant or nasty towards you.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much, I understand where she's coming from, because I walk in this confidence like you don't see what I deal with on a daily basis or where I came from to get to this confidence. And it's like, from her point, you seeing it as someone coming towards you, just totally challenging you. So I understand what you're saying about it's a mirror. But everybody is not sitting under the teaching that we're taught. So when you get someone coming at you like that, you're not seeing it as they're trying to draw.
But you're right, and that's why I'm telling you that earlier I said to you, that we reject the awakening of the pineal gland, the third eye, more than we know, because we don't recognize it. That's what she sees. Earlier I explained to you the vision I had about the light. What she sees is that light. We call it confidence. Some people call it arrogance. Some call it boldness. But what she sees is that light. She doesn't know how to identify it, so she criticizes it.
What do you do? I mean,
What you do is accept it for what it is and tell yourself, regardless of what happens, I am not going to allow me to feel like I need to respond to her negatively. That's what you do. And you don't try to answer her questions in a way that you know is going to push her buttons.
but I don't. I answer them
Yes, you do.
honestly.
Yeah,
He doesn't
well,
flip it.
I'm going to show you what's honest. This is honest. Honestly is this. Honestly is, do you believe in heaven? Yes. Honestly is also, yes, I believe in heaven right here on earth. But the best honest answer for her is yes. That's the best honest answer.
I just want her to stop.
It's not going to stop. Better, it's not going to stop.
Until she dies.
It's not going to stop.
She's gonna be my client for the next 2 years.
She said until she died.
It's not going to stop. And what I'm saying, and the reason we come into these seemingly conflicting circumstances is because we need to learn something. It's all about correction. Everything. See, and I'm coming to an end. I don't know why I took this pen off because I ain't writing nothing. When we look at things from that we consider bad, we say God punishing us. But God is not punishing us, He is correcting us. Everything is meant for correction. So when we come into circumstances that appear to be adverse to what we expect or desire them to be, it's not for purposes of antagonism, but it is for purpose of correction. And the correction is for us to learn, because we are the light, we have to begin to absorb the confusion, the darkness. And what she is spewing is confusion, total misunderstanding. And being able to absorb that doesn't necessarily mean that you answer it in a way that you could answer it in this room. Even when I did that funeral, I did not do the scriptures in the way that I would do them in this room. I did them in a way that the people could receive them without feeling that I was talking down to them or being antagonistic towards them. So that's how you have to deal with those situations. And believe you me, at some point in our lives, all of us come into contact with things of that nature, but thank God basis, or,
It's once a month.
well, you all right?
Oh,
You can, well, you can live through that.
as long as it's busy.
Shoot, you can stand on your head one time a month. Okay, I know that we talked about the,
Can I say something? I'm sorry.
oh, yeah.
Well, you did, you know, let's just now, I remember something Sean said last
Go
week.
ahead, go ahead.
Well, you know, a moth, this is the best way I can describe it, and then I have a suggestion. A moth can go to a light and it can get really burned or singed, or I can find out that it's very beautiful. And that lady, for whatever her issue is, that she feels, this is just what I see, it's ugly inside. Maybe the next time she comments on your page, you could say, you know, it could be yours too. And leave it at that. Let her take that step to.
Yeah.
She
that's
knows.
right.
Listen, I'm not saying she could be you, but fashion could be her in person,
Yeah.
where she's comfortable.
Yeah, tell her,
I'm not saying
you can be
take yours and
fashionable
put it on
too.
her,
Yeah.
because she don't have what it takes to carry it. Okay, I already know that. But I'm just, you know, what I keep coming back to my mind is, remember the day you came and you brought me the jacket sleeve to the computer? You didn't have to do that. You did not have to do that. It meant everything to me. I'm saying that exact same thing will happen for that lady. Not that you have to show her your style, because your style isn't meant for her. But somewhere in her, she feels like she is ugly. All she needs is that one word to say, what you have is yours. You can make it beautiful. You have that ability to give it. That's what she sees in you.
Please don't tell her she's sleeping.
I see it when I look in the mirror, so.
That's what India says.
When you look in the mirror.
Okay,
It doesn't work that way for everybody. I'm just gonna tell you, it doesn't.
it doesn't.
No, but I have my moments.
I do too.
I have my moment, but that ain't one of them. That is not one of them. Anyway, are there any other questions? I wonder what would happen if I said, no, remember, you can't say that. I bet you'd have fell out of that shit.
No, I'm just saying.
We're going back to the very beginning. The other thing that goes with the lover of horses is warlike. And I'm not sure if that's because that particular city was occupied by the Romans. And also, that it's funny, Paul actually started the first European church there as well. So I'm not sure.
Sheldon is answering the question that came up at the beginning about horses.
Horses.
What do they represent?
Yeah.
I wanted to make that clear, so somebody be like, what?
Yeah, somebody.
Oh,
Yeah.
but it also dealt with being warlike, and it also, that was a city, a major city that was occupied by the Romans, and that was the first place that was actually, the church was established. That was the first place in Europe that the church was established.
So then warlike would be the struggling between what we first talked about, what is really unity versus
Unicity, oneness.
unity. Yes.
See, things that you unify can be separated again.
Right. Right.
But things that are one, regardless of what you think about them, they remain one.
That's what the difference.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? Now, hopefully, when we come together on the next week, which is what, the first Saturday in June, right?
Second.
The 2nd of June. Hopefully, when we come together on the 2nd of June, we will be dealing with, I want to talk about the comparison between Abraham and Adam. I want to deal with that and try to show you the sleep, what the trances are and what transpired in both of them.
When y'all leaving on the 14th?
We leave on the 14th,
And that's the third Saturday in.
the 16th. Yeah, we will not be on the 16th.
Right.
Well, I'm glad y'all said June.
Yeah. Yeah, we leave, like, 1 second. We leave on the 14th of June. We come back on the 18th of June. We will not have session here on the 16th. We will not have session at Great New Faith on the 17th. And we will not have session on Monday night on the 18th. So everything for that weekend is shut down. Hopefully between now and next week, I will know whether or not the wireless service is fast enough for us to be able to broadcast during the training session, the teacher session on that Friday. Whether it is or not, what we are going to do, we're going to record the session, and we're going to put it, up on the site and on YouTube. Okay, so the session will be available, and you know that nothing with us ever goes planned when we think about what we're going to talk about. But one of the major things that we are looking at is talking about the whole concept of Jehovah, God, Jesus, salvation, baptism, communion, in a way that children can be taught to understand it from an esoteric perspective. What we're trying to do is develop not a curriculum, but a method of discussion, so that children at any age can grasp what we're saying. And once we do that, we hope to either distribute it via DVDs or distributed by it being transcribed in some manner. The second half of it, hopefully, like I said, things don't always go the way we plan them, is to get a deeper understanding of the relationship between the womb of the earth and the atom. Because if you think about it, it talks about Adam being taken from the dust of the earth, right? So the physical manifestation of that is that our bodies consist of the same elements as does this manifestation of a physical earth. And when these bodies are of no longer use to us, these bodies are put back into the womb, which is the earth. And the breath recognizes its oneness with the breath of everything, of the life of everything that is. And it recognizes, not reunites, but it recognizes the unicity of the oneness that it has with that. And I want us to be able to talk about that with an understanding so clear until, regardless of whether you are part of the covering, part of the people are covered or not, you'll be able to grasp who you are based upon the creation itself. You understand? Am I clear with that? So that's what we want to do. And we're going to have to be very, very careful to not get in some of the discussions we get into, the depth of stuff that we do. Okay? All right, now, to those of you who are viewing, we are about to end. And in doing so, Father, we thank you that the light of your countenance not only shines upon us, but the light of your countenance shines from us. And those who are drawn to us, we simply ask for the awareness to be able to help them see that they too are the light. Amen.
Amen. Let me clean that refrigerator.
Okay.
It's hard.